Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News. Today, once again, we have Robert Steinbuch joining us. Many of you know he is a professor at the Bowen School of Law, but today he is here representing his own views and beliefs, and he's here to tell us about his primary run for House District 73. Hello.
Great to be with you again, Jenny.
Yeah, it's always fun to have you here on Conduit. Give us an update on your race for House District 73. That is a part of the Little Rock area. Tell us how that is going, and early voting is underway. So just give us an update.
Yeah, well, as you say, early voting is underway. The election, of course, everyone who's watching this show knows, is on the 24th itself. And look, I'm feeling good, but to be fair, who knows? That is, there are no polls in elections of this size. There's one poll ultimately, and that's on May 24th. So we'll see what happens. But here's something that is interesting in that process. Of course, we're talking about the Republican primary. And as you know, in Arkansas, they are open primaries. So you don't need to be registered with any particular party to vote in that party primary. Now, in one respect, that's good, because there are plenty of conservatives who simply haven't registered as a Republican, and they want to vote aptly in the Republican primary. But the downside is that sometimes you get trickery, and a Democrat or Democrats will try to vote in the Republican primary for the stealth Democratic candidate, so that when they get to the general, it's Democrat versus Democrat. And of course, we don't want that, right?
Right.
And I have some evidence in my situation that that's the case, albeit anecdotal. Here's one interesting piece of evidence. I went down the street and spoke to someone, and I said, "Oh, I see your neighbor has my opponent's sign." And this person with whom I was speaking said, "Well, that's interesting. My neighbor's a Democrat." And then I was on the Facebook post, or the Facebook site, I should say, of my primary challenger. And he puts out a post that says, "Hey, if you want a sign for me, I'll come over and install it." All right. So someone says, "I'll take one." And he says, "I'm coming over." So I just click on the person who asked for the sign. Green Party. Green Party. That's left of left. That's so left it's fallen off the earth. So these are the people that I've seen supporting my primary opponent.
We are seeing, particularly in this primary election, we're seeing, I would say, left of center organizations, and that's putting it lightly, encourage Democrats to get out and vote in these Republican primaries. You mentioned that it's possible because they now have Democrats who have switched over to the Republican Party simply because they know that they can't get elected as a Democrat. Talk to us about that and what your opinion is on that.
Well, indeed, right. As you might recall, because I've spoken with you on your show before about this, in the April 10th Democrat Gazette, they did a profile on my race. So they profiled me and they profiled my opponent. It's the only time I've seen my opponent come out of his basement and do an interview. He refused to answer about 4 of the 6 questions that were posed, but on the 2 that he answered, he said he's a moderate, not a conservative. And I said, I'm a conservative. And he only identified one tax that he was willing to cut, and that was corporate taxes, because he's a corporate shill. He's a Chamber of Commerce shill.
Yeah.
He works, of course, for the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, which funnels taxpayer dollars to the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, I was going to talk to you about that. We have done several articles about the Arkansas Economic Defense Fund. I'm sorry.
Development Commission. That's okay.
That's with Conduit. We actually do pro bono work to help people. Right, about the commission. He has been on leadership there since 2019. What does that say about where he stands regarding big business and taxpayer dollars?
Yeah, well, it's an excellent question. And here's just but one example. When he was leadership on the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, which he still is, the AEDC gave $1 million taxpayer dollars to this big company that you may have heard of called Carvana. And they're all sort of fancy, you can buy a car over the internet and they'll drive it over to you. Okay, great. Now, by the way, there are plenty of local car dealerships that'll do that for you too. But no, the AEDC gives a bunch of money to an out-of-state company to come into state to compete against our local car dealers. But here's the rub on it. Listen, someone wants to come in from out of state and try to get business done in Arkansas. That's fine. Go ahead and compete. Put yourself on level footing with
Sure.
the local car dealers and see if you can beat them. And if you can, good for you. That's what competition is all about. But Carvana was a brilliant failure. It went up in flames. And
What do they call those unicorn companies?
Exactly. And $1 million taxpayer dollars down the drain. Now, Jenny, if you start up a company here in Arkansas, if I start up a company, or any of your viewers start up a company, let's say we open up a five and dime. Remember those? I don't know if that term is used much anymore. Or you open up a hardware store and you try to compete against the big guys, the big national chains. Do you think the Arkansas Economic Development Commission is giving you $1 million so that you have no expenses? No, from day one, you got to start paying your employees. You got to pay rent. You got to withhold payroll taxes. You got to pay the government. All of that happens the day you start running your business. Not for Carvana, Carvana, because the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, on which my primary challenger serves, is shelling out cash, dollar after dollar, to the big business because they favor big business. Now think about the equivalent, what we see going on in national politics right now. Joe Biden says, I want to forgive the loans for people who go to college. By the way, forgive, they ain't your loans. So in other words, what he's saying is that he wants you, Jimmy, and me, and every taxpayer to pay for the loans of those folks who went to college. I went to college, I took out loans, and I worked. I hauled garbage, literally, while I went to college, and I paid off my loans, not your loans. Is Joe Biden talking about giving away free money to the guy who, instead of going to college, decided to become a plumber, decided to become a pipe fitter, decided to become an electrician, and went to work immediately and took out a mortgage, but a different kind of mortgage, a mortgage on his house so that his wife and kids can live in modest comfort. I'm not talking about forgiving those loans because these are elitist programs. The Arkansas Economic Development Commission is an elitist program that gives away your money to big business, but not small startups in Arkansas.
Yeah. So what does this look like for you? What does it look like as we're in the primary elections moving forward to November? What do Arkansans need to know about you specifically? What would you say would be the way to become more economically prosperous here in Arkansas? Of course, that may completely contradict what your opponent is for. He doesn't seem to put small businesses and that sort of thing at the forefront. What do you suggest?
Well, that's exactly right. My father was a small businessman for 25 years, and then thereafter went and taught at a local community college, small business. And I support small business. Mind you, Jenny, to be clear, I go to Walmart, I go to Sam's competitor now in Little Rock, Costco, because I believe in competition, small and big alike. My dad, when he ran a small business, there was the equivalent of a box chain, but back then that popped up nearby, and he competed. And he said, have at it. If I can't compete against them, then I shouldn't be in business. And he did just fine, by the way. So, because he provided extra service, right? And so we need to create a level playing field for everybody to be able to compete. The government shouldn't be taking your tax dollars, and by the way, the small business owners' tax dollars, and using that money against them. And that's what's going on today. And the AEDC shells out big money to big business. And by the way, the folks that work there make big money as well, all coming out of our pockets. Those are the types of programs we simply need to eliminate. And guess what happens when we eliminate so many of these wasteful programs at the state government level? There's more money in the pockets of hardworking Arkansans to do as they decide is right for them. They make their choices about their lives. This is about individual freedom and individual choice. That's why, of course, I testified in the legislature after the Arkansas Chamber of Commerce did, immediately after. And when they testified, they got up and they said, we want to mandate vaccines. Wait, what? We want to mandate vaccines, said the Arkansas Chamber of Commerce. Why? Because they think they can control your private life. That's not what's going on in business. You don't get a vaccine at business. You get a vaccine at home on your own time when you go to the doctor. And they want to tell you what to put in your body. And they're going to tell you to put a colonoscopy in your body next. And I don't need them putting anything in any parts of my body. Thank you very much.
Right. It would be interesting to get these people running, such as your opponent, to get them on record. Okay, what is your opinion about the state chamber being at the Capitol, pushing for mandated vax, pushing those legislators to not vote for the SAFE Act? It'd be interesting to get some of these guys on the record about this, but I doubt that will happen before the 24th.
Well, indeed.
Tell us how. What?
Let me tell you, Jenny, Dave Ellswick invited my primary challenger on his show. No show. I went to at least one forum in which my primary opponent was scheduled to be there. No show. I have invited him on my radio show, Steinbuch on Sundays. No show. So
shocking.
Yeah, I call him Johnny Crickets, right? Because there's nothing to be heard from him.
It's almost as if some of these candidates are just kind of hiding to make sure that they're not being held accountable, and just hoping that they can make it through the election to the 24th and they get elected. It's really entertaining to watch. Tell people how they can get involved with your race. What do they need to do regarding voting? Just let them know about that very quickly.
Absolutely. So my website is steinbuchforarkansas.com. And let me just spell out the last name. It's a little bit long and it has the German spelling, STEINBUCH for FOR, Arkansas.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, so you can check me out there as well. And of course, if you go to my primary opponent's Facebook page, you can see all the 4 or so posts from him. So there's virtually no information. All my information is out there. I am a constitutional conservative. You know what you're getting. I've worked with the legislature for a decade now. I have written bills. I have passed laws. I have testified in the legislature. None of these things have been done by my primary opponent. The only thing he does is shell out big money to lobbyists to run his campaign and send out mailers that are in direct contravention to the explicit statements that my primary opponent rather, has said in the press. Directly opposite. He says he's a moderate and his paid lobbyists call him a conservative. Why? Because the truth don't matter to them. They just want to win.
That's right. Well, Robert, always enjoyable to have you on Conduit News. Keep us updated as we head into the 24th, and hope to have you back on soon.
Thanks so much, Jenny. Talk to you soon.